Don't mind the fact that there's like nothing behind me. This is the corner I'm sitting in because it's late at night and this light is really nice, so hope you don't mind. But today I'm going to be talking about my labor and delivery story because it's very, very much overdue, but it's not something that I really wanted to talk about at first because of everything that happened, which you guys will find out shortly. I actually ended up staying the night at Phil's the night that I went into labor. Totally, like, obviously I didn't know when I was going to go into labor. It just ended up being a very lucky decision to make to go over there, because I hadn't been staying there for multiple days in a row because I was simply too tired to like get up and drive over there at night. So I went over there this night because he wanted me to, and at about 2 in the morning I was kind of like half asleep and I felt some fluids gush out of me, and it woke me up because I was not fully asleep. So I immediately got up and went to the bathroom, but as soon as I stood up, more liquid gushed out of me, and I knew that I did not pee because the entire pregnancy I never had an issue with holding my bladder. I know that's supposed to be a common thing in pregnancy, and I personally never experienced that. During pregnancy, I never really had that issue of needing to pee or like peeing my pants a little bit. I never had that problem, so I knew that this wasn't something that I was in control of. And, I went to the bathroom and it had like a little pink tint to it, and I knew what that meant. So I got up and flipped the light on in the room, and I'm like, Phil. And it's so weird because it must have been the way that I said his name that he just like snapped awake, which is extremely unusual because he is a very deep sleeper and he does not wake up for anything. I mean, it takes like it's very hard for me to wake him up. So I flipped on the light and I said, Phil, and he woke up and I'm like, I'm pretty sure my water just broke. And he was like, what? No way. Oh my God. The whole thing. And he got up and he like peeked in his mom's room and told her what was happening, and I went back in the bathroom because I was still leaking and I didn't want to be leaking on my pants. So I just went and sat on the toilet and called the hospital and, explained to them what was happening. And they're like, yeah, your water definitely sounds like your water broke. Take your time, you're not going to immediately go into labor, but, take a shower because you won't be able to for a while, and come in. So I did exactly that. I hopped in the shower to wash off the fluids because it was kind of, it's just weird. It's some weird type of bodily fluid coming out of you. So took a shower, and I took a really decent shower, kind of like preparing myself also because I knew I was about to go into the hospital and I had no idea what to expect, and I don't like hospitals. I don't like anything that has to do with medical experiences because every time I do something that's medical related, I've always had a bad experience, and this labor and delivery story is going to be another example of that exactly. So I get to the hospital at about 3 something in the morning. His mom followed us there. I already had my bag packed, ready to go, fortunately. But like I mentioned in my last update video, my last video that I've posted, period, that I obviously didn't get to even make a 38-week update because right before I turned 39 weeks, I went into labor that day before. So didn't get a chance to make that video. I did not get a chance to make a hospital bag video because it wasn't really completely packed until not too long before I went into labor. So didn't really have time to record that at all, but basically the essentials that I had was a really soft robe that I found at Meijer to wear afterwards, which I definitely did after I finally took my shower. I wore that. I had slippers in case I was walking around and wanted them. I used those. I did not bring a diaper bag. I didn't think there was any point because the hospital pretty much provides everything for you. So I did not worry about bringing a bag. I just packed a few of her clothing, items in my little suitcase, and that's what I took. I did not take like a really cute bag that most people usually do. I just literally took the small suitcase that I had at my mom's, stuffed it with like because you know you're in the hospital gown for days. They don't really allow you to take that off until you've taken a shower. So I had like comfortable clothing, like a spaghetti strap shirt and loose shorts and whatever. I didn't really have a whole lot, just like essentials, hygiene products, stuff like that. Anyway, we went in with that, the boppy pillow, a towel in between my legs because I wore a dress, and I had a towel because I was still leaking fluids. We went in, and the people at the desk said they knew exactly where we were going because of everything that he was holding and carrying. And they checked me in, they checked my fluid to make sure, just to confirm that it was the amniotic fluid, and it was. I had to pee in a cup, and then I remember though when we checked in that I was starting to get really crampy. Like, I know that that was the beginning of going into labor and feeling contractions. So I was getting a little crampy, and then they put me in a room and they put me on Pitocin almost right away. And you guys, this is not a normal labor and delivery story. That's actually a separate video because I want to go into more detail of the things that went wrong rather than the labor and delivery story. But essentially, they put me on Pitocin right away, and long story short, I can't remember exactly the times that all of this stuff occurred, but at some point, well, at multiple points, they were checking my cervix for dilation, and I was dilating pretty slowly. So I eventually did get the epidural because pains got pretty bad. I know that labor was supposed to hurt. That's a pretty obvious thing for everybody. But it was unbearable, and so I got the epidural, and it didn't work. I ended up getting a hot spot, which meant that instead of my entire like back hurting, which is the area that usually hurts really bad during labor, I think that may just be if you have back labor. I wouldn't really know. That's the only way I've experienced it. But basically one side of my back was hurting instead of the whole back, and that kind of sucked because then it was like all the pain was directed to that one spot. And then they were giving me some other type of pain relief every hour. I kept requesting it, and I can't remember what it was called. It was like Nubane or something of that sort, but I am extremely ignorant in medical terms because I am not at all involved in anything medical because it's just not my thing. That would actually help for a little while. It would calm things down and make me feel a little better. It would make me feel things a little less, but it would eventually wear off, and the pain would come back. At about, I want to say 5 p.m., they lowered my levels of Pitocin because they were very high, and my family actually left to get something to eat nearby. We were nearby a few restaurants, so they left to go do that because nothing was really happening at the hospital. And then at about 7 p.m. they checked my cervix again, and I was fully dilated, so they wanted me to start pushing, and they came in, and I like texted my family to let them know that I was pushing. I was pushing for 3 hours when they finally decided on a C-section because her head was kind of sideways. They called it transverse and also sunny side up. I don't know if those two were the same things, but those were the terms that I kept hearing, that not only was her head not straight, it was kind of crooked, and her head was like facing up, so her skull was on my spine, and that was why it was so painful on my spine. And she was not coming out. I mean, they had me pushing forever, and they kept telling me that I was doing really good, but nothing would happen, nothing progressed. She wouldn't come out. She'd just get closer and closer. And then they suggested a vacuum. At this point, they upped my Pitocin levels again because I wasn't contracting quick or like frequently enough and strong enough. So they upped those again, and within a half hour after beginning to push, my pain came back. And I mean, they kept having me try all these different positions, like being on all fours and just normal and all this other stuff. And it got to the point where it hurt to breathe. They kept telling me to, you know, breathe, and I couldn't. I was sobbing. And at this point, I was in labor for about 20 hours, and I really just wanted it to end. That's a very long labor, and to be honest, I get envious of everyone else that tells me how easy it was for them, or the people that could push out their child within 10 minutes. I was not as lucky. She wouldn't come out. I was in a lot of pain. They, you know, they're like, all right, C-section, and I fear I fear surgeries because every experience that I've had with being put under and having surgery has not gone very well. And I was freaking out, but that was the only option we had left. So I remember screaming at the same time that I'm signing papers to do this procedure, and they roll me out, and there's a guy on the phone out in the hallway talking to whoever, and I'm just screaming. It's like movie style that you would see in a movie, you know. And they roll me into this cold-ass room, and they'd give me a spinal, which is the shot that they put in your spine to numb you from the waist down. And the first one that they did hit a nerve or something because a pain shot down my leg, and so they had to do it a second time. And I remember shaking so badly, and then everything started to go numb, and I was in a daze because I was so tired at this point, and I was awake, but I was like drifting into some weird in-between land, and I didn't hear her cry. I heard them say something about like 10 minutes and then a baby, and next thing I knew, like, the doctor turned my head to look at her, and totally fast forwarded the part where they had to tie my hands down because of the shaking, which someone told me that they do that for everybody because of some people's urge to scratch at their bellies, but I did not feel a thing. I did not feel a thing except the fact that I couldn't feel pain anymore, and that made me so happy because I was in pain the entire day. And I mean, the reason why I haven't talked about it is because it does make me very emotional to remember what it feels like. And the fact that, you know, it didn't go as planned at all. But she was born at 10:16 p.m. on August 15th, and all I remember is, the weird thing is that they didn't put me on her like they do for everybody right away. They took her out, showed me, took her to wherever, and cleaned her up and put on that heater on her because they come out kind of purplish. And then her skin came back, and then Phil was in there and holding her in front of me, and she just kept staring at him. But yeah, by then it was getting pretty late. It was like 11:30 by the time everything was all done, and they allowed my family to come back, which my family had been there all day long. My mom took off work to come hang out with me, and my sister actually was on vacation at the time, so she was able to come and be there. But my dad showed up after he got off work, but his mom was also there all day because she does not work. But, you know, those 4 people came back. My mom, my dad, my sister, and his mom. They all came back on their own to meet her, and then they went home, and we got some rest, and yeah, that's my labor and delivery story without the extra details, which I'll talk about in another video. So that's my labor and delivery story, the shortest version that I could possibly make of it. If you guys have any questions, feel free to ask, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.